Good morning, class. Let us continue with the essay The Quest for Happiness by His Highness Dalai Lama. So far, we have discussed the importance of material wealth, importance of money in human life in order to get happiness, which is the kind of permanent happiness. And Dalai Lama comes to the conclusion that money cannot bring permanent happiness. Money is necessary for some primary needs, for betterment in material kind of life, for some resources, but it's not necessary, or it's not helpful in obtaining happiness, that is permanent happiness. Let us continue. In this part he talks about the second factor, that is health. So let us see what Dalai Lama thinks about health as far as happiness is concerned. Is health necessary, or does health bring happiness and satisfaction in human life? Much more important than money, possessions, the things which we possess, or status, that is the status in society, the respect we get in society, therefore is our inner or mental state of being. So he says that more than money or physical property that we have, or prestige or status in our society, what matters is our inner or mental state of being, our mental state, our psychological situation, our inner spiritual state of being. There is an important aspect of human personality and human life, that is the mental or spiritual state, what we feel within ourselves. So that is also very important, and that is even more important than money or wealth. Members of a poor family will be happy if there is affection. Affection is love, emotions, kindness, and trust between them. So he says, if there is a poor family, but in their life, love is there, kindness is there, and in between them there is trust, then they can be happy even though they are poor. There are rich neighbors, but in contrast to that, there might be a rich family. Their rich neighbors may live in luxury, Aisho Aram. Their rich neighbors, they have everything, material wealth, they have physical possessions, they have every kind of gadgets, they have big houses, big cars, and they have every physical luxury with them. But if suspicion, sanshay, doubt, or resentment, ill will for each other, anger for each other besets their mind, if their mind is full of suspicion or anger, frustration, resentment for each other, they will have no genuine happiness, genuine real happiness. So in that condition, the rich family could not enjoy real, genuine, permanent kind of happiness. This is a matter of common sense, and it's a very common thing to understand. So ultimately, finally, the mental level is the key. The mental level, the psychological condition, the spiritual condition of a human being is the key. It is very important for the happiness in human life. Recent social science, Samajik Shastre, recent social science research, and what goes on, what are social sciences? There are the disciplines like sociology, like history, political science, or economics. So all these disciplines come under social science, the science that studies society and various aspects related to the society, and there is continuously there is a research going on in that field. And the recent social science research has shown not only that the mental benefits of wealth are temporary, and social science research shows that the mental benefits of mind because of wealth are temporary, they are not permanent. But also that the general level of contentment, satisfaction, samadhan, so the general level of contentment in a society is higher when wealth is more evenly, samapramanat, equally distributed among the population than when there are large disparities, differences, discriminations between rich and poor. So when wealth is evenly distributed, equally distributed among all the sections of the society, then there are chances of happiness, compared to when wealth is not equally distributed in a society. And in our society wealth is not equally distributed, because we know that some business families, some industrialist families, they have 90% of the share of wealth of the nation, whereas the 10% of the remaining wealth is distributed among 90% of the population. So how many families are there, how many people of the total population of a nation they get the highest share of nation? Only 10% of the people. Count the very richest families in our society or in our country, and you can find the difference. So this is the condition which is against happiness. This again suggests that well-being is the balanced condition of health as well as wealth. Well-being cannot be measured, cannot be counted in objective material terms. Objective is something that is related to things, physical things, material things, terms, but is dependent on. So you cannot measure, you cannot count, you cannot think of happiness or contentment, satisfaction in terms of how many things you have, in terms of material property that you possess, but it is dependent on a range of contextual factors. Context, background. There are so many things related to happiness, and not only wealth, which affect one's mental attitude toward or relationship to that wealth. So there are many contextual factors which have effect on a person's mental attitude, whether he she is happy, satisfied or not, or a relationship to that wealth. So here he talks about the importance of wealth, material wealth for happiness, money, and he comes to the conclusion that money cannot bring real happiness, permanent satisfaction. Now in the next paragraph he talks about the second factor, that is health. Now let us see how health can be supporting the human happiness, whether it brings human happiness, whether human happiness depends upon health or not. And what about health? Is health a source of well-being? Once again, it certainly is. So up to some extent he says yes. For being happy, health is one condition. Health is necessary. As most of us have experienced for ourselves, when we are in constant pain, when we are continuously suffering or discomfort, we are not comfortable, maintaining a positive attitude can be very difficult. So when somebody is ill, his or her attitude cannot be positive and they cannot be happy. It is true. So, looking after our physical health is crucial. It is highly important that we should take care of our physical health. We must eat well. And what does it mean by taking care of the physical health? We must eat well, sleep well, and take some exercise. So these three things are very necessary. You must have good food, you must sleep well, and you must undertake some kind of exercise. If we fall ill, we should consult a suitably qualified doctor. And if we are sick, if we are ill, then we should go to a suitably qualified doctor and follow the treatment prescribed. And whatever the treatment is prescribed, whatever the treatment is there given to us, we should follow that treatment. So this is how we can take care of our health. This much is obvious and it is true. If, however, we consider health to be an entirely, totally physical matter and concern ourselves with the state of our body while neglecting mental and emotional factors, but he says we must not consider that health depends only on our physical condition, and we should not at all think of the mental condition. Then we are mistaken. So for being healthy, a balance between mental health, psychological health as well as the physical health is important. For there is no necessary or direct link between enjoying good physical health and being happy. So he now here makes an important statement. He says there is no necessary or direct link. It is not the equation that good physical health is equal to happiness. It is not so. Why? After all, isn't it possible for someone with a healthy, strong body to be unhappy? Because we come to know that there are so many strong people around us, healthy people around us. Does that mean they are not unhappy? Are they all happy because they are healthy? In fact, it is quite common. And isn't it equally possible for someone in poor, even very poor health, nonetheless to be happy? And whereas there are some people who are poor and who are poor and in physical weakness, but and there are some very old people, but still they are happy. Certainly not so. Although physical health certainly contributes to human happiness, so it means physical health is up to some extent contributes, it is responsible for human happiness, necessary for human happiness. It is not its ultimate source, but it cannot be its final ultimate source. That is, physical health is equal to happiness cannot be so. It is not true. Instead, the real source of happiness once again involves our state of mind. So he says real source of happiness is equal to our state of mind, our mental condition, our outlook. What do we think about, our attitude, our feelings towards the world around, outlook, and motivation, and our motivation in life, prerna, and our level of warm-heartedness, an attitude of love and care for others, towards others. So that is our sense of relationship to the world. It is also important besides health and wealth. Then he has so far he has come to two important points, that is, material wealth cannot bring permanent happiness, as well as health cannot bring permanent happiness, but relationships are important. Now he turns to the third important factor, that is friendship. Now let us consider friendship. Certainly having a close circle of friends close friends, people with whom we can pass time. And who are these friends? Friends are the people with whom we can pass time and share experiences. We can share our feelings, emotions, our thoughts, anything with some people, and they are our friends is very important. And having a group of friends in our life is very important, as we are social animals, because it is said that human beings are social animals. We cannot live without the society. Relationship with others are crucial to our well-being. So our being happy and healthy, it is necessary to have relationships in our life. But we must consider carefully what distinguishes genuine friendship from superficial friendship. But friendship can be of two types: genuine, real friendship, and superficial. Superficial, the things that are apparently true at the outer layer, at the superficial level, वरवर पाहता, but they may not be true, which bring only superficial benefits. So there are true friendships and there are superficial, they are artificial, they are not really there, they are not genuine. There is no doubt that in human society, money, social standing, social status, and appearance, how we look, bring only money, social standing, and appearance bring with them a great deal of attention, attraction, identity in the society. So what brings attention in our life? If a person is if a person is rich, having money, status in life, as well as good looks, then he and she gets attention. Yet what is the real object of this attention? But what is the purpose? What is the real object of this attention? Is it possible that these people are not truly our friends, but rather friends of our money, status, or good looks? Does that mean they are our real friends, our admirers? No, they are the friends of our money, our social status, or our good looks. And if so, what will happen if our fortunes decline? If our wealth and well-being is not there, status is not there, and it goes away, it just disappears, decline. What if we lose our good looks? What if we are not beautiful, good looking? Or our money? What if we are not rich? Will these friends still be there when we need them? And then there is the test of true friendship, true relationship. Are these friends still in your life when you are not wealthy, when you are not beautiful, when you are not famous in the society, but still you need them? Or will they just fade away? Or it sometimes happens that these friends, they just disappear when you are not beautiful, when you don't have money, or when you don't have prestige or status in the society. The danger is that such friends will quickly disappear. And the most important thing, the dangerous thing, is that these friends, they quickly disappear when one is not beautiful and wealthy or famous in the society. It is clearly the case that genuine friendship can only be based on trust and affection. So what are the condition of genuine friendship? Trust and affection, trust and love, compassion, which can only arise when there is a mutual sense of concern and respect. And for this to happen, what one needs in life? Concern and respect, mutual sense, paraspar sambandhi. Concern, care, काळजी, and respect. So friendship comes with trust, concern, respect, and affection. So feelings of trust and loving kindness, which counteract, which are opposite to feelings of isolation or loneliness. So it is opposite to feelings of isolation, ekakipana or loneliness, do not come from the mere external presence of others. So all these things, they does not come from the presence of others, physical presence, or from the outer appearance of friendship, from the superficial level of friendship, but from one's own attitude of concern and respect towards those others. So it's a matter of give and take. If you trust others, if you respect others, if you take care of others, if you have concern for others, then others will think the same about you. Otherwise, no. Their ultimate source is within us. So what is the source of friendship, trust, affection, care, concern? That is within us. If we respect others, if we trust others, if we have concern for others, then others will have the same things for us. By the end of the essay, he gives an example. During a visit to Spain many years ago, I met a Christian monk, Christian Bhikkhu, Christian Dharmaguru. I met a Christian monk who had spent 5 years living as a hermit, sannyasi, sadhu, hermit behind his monastery. So in Christianity, as I told you earlier, there is the concept of monastery where people take the training of religion. So there is when Dalai Lama was on a visit to Spain, he came across, he met a Christian monk and who had spent 5 years of his life as a hermit behind his monastery. I asked him what he had been doing all that time, and Dalai Lama asks him, what were you doing all that time for those 5 years? He replied that he had been meditating on love. Meditate, deep thinking, chintan, manan. He says he had been meditating, reflecting on love. When he said this in English, even more broken than mine, I saw such a depth of feeling. But he says his language was broken, his English was not good, but there was such a depth of feeling in his eyes, that depth of feeling, kholi, bhavananchi kholi. He was very genuine in his eyes, that there was no need for him to say more. So there was no need for that person to use more words. Here we have an example of someone who lived alone but felt no loneliness. So here is an example of somebody who lived alone in his life for 5 years, but he was not lonely. पण तो माणूस एकाकी होता का? एकटा असून सुद्धा? No, but because he was thinking about love, relationship. It is warm-heartedness or compassion, affection, prem, love, above all, which connects us to others. So this is the warm-heartedness, affection, compassion, love that connects us to others, that makes us together with others. People who appear to have many friends and admirers, prashansak, may nevertheless feel quite isolated. If there are so many people, they have so many friends, but still they are alone in their lives. I would remind such people that the only antidote, त्याच्यावर उतारा किंवा एखादा रोग बऱ्या होण्यासाठीचं औषध. I would remind such people that the only antidote to such loneliness, so what is the solution for loneliness, is their own inner attitude of affection, love, compassion, concern, care, and warm-heartedness towards their fellow human beings. So what is the solution of loneliness in life? It is the inner attitude. It is the mental state of love and affection, trust, concern, warm-heartedness towards their fellow human beings, towards the world. So here His Highness Dalai Lama comes to the conclusion that what is necessary for a permanent happiness and satisfaction in human life is the relationship, is the mental attitude, is the warm heartedness, is compassion and love, affection for the world. So here we have completed this essay, and in the next video we will talk about active and passive voice. Thank you.